All right. Charlie Burris, Zach Ragan, not a full episode of the Big Orange podcast this week. Another segment because Zach and I, with our schedules, it gets kind of crazy during the summer, and so we can't do a full episode this week. So we're just going to do a quick segment, and it feels kind of fitting because baseball season just ended. You're kind of transitioning over to football now. Got to get into that headspace. And we're going to kind of try to do that, just sort of talk a little bit about expectations for Tennessee's football season before in the next few weeks we get into really what every position is going to look like, camp, everything that's going to be happening. But what's up, Zach?
Not a whole lot. Yeah, we're right in the middle of summer now. It's getting hot outside. It's time to go on vacation, go to the beach, and enjoy the summer before SEC Media Days will be here in a month. And at that point, it feels like football season's here. So it'll be here before you know it.
I mean, when your baseball team is good, there's almost no break, which for our purposes, nice. And really, I guess if you're a fan, that's nice too. There's really nobody except maybe like our wives that benefit from there being
Yeah.
breaks in the seasons. And apologies to them. But let's get right to it. So for this upcoming football season, like I said, just kind of want to talk high level, some of the stuff that we've been seeing recently that has been talking points. Obviously, you've been seeing some of the recruiting stuff. There hasn't been a ton of movement this week. Interest in Keys was in town, committed to LSU, but there's been signs that he's very interested in Tennessee. Just signed a big endorsement deal with Adidas. Tennessee rumored potentially to be moving in the Adidas direction again. I know a lot of people are upset about that, but also it may be what it is. There's been some news there. I guess before we get into that, anything, there just hasn't been anything super notable with the recruiting outside of that. Although getting Tristan Keys would be massive.
Yeah, I mean, we're getting down to it, right? Like the Tennessee's got their big official visit weekend next weekend when a lot of guys will be in. And that's also the final weekend of official visits across the sport. And after that weekend, you'll see a ton of decisions start trickling in. In this recruiting space now, it's so different than it was 5 years ago, 10 years ago, where you could really kind of forecast what some of these guys were going to do. And now even the guys that are committed, you never know. Like, I mean, Tennessee's had a commitment from quarterback Faison Brandon for, 10 months at this point. He feels as locked in with Tennessee as any recruit could be, and yet it still feels like I don't expect him to go anywhere. But if he did, like, would you be totally shocked at this point with just the way the recruiting stuff goes? Like, not to create any panic there. I don't think that guy's going anywhere, but you just never know. Like, these things are never done until guys are essentially playing on Saturdays. Because even once they sign, the portal's still a thing. Guys get out of deals. They transfer. It's crazy. So it's fun when Tennessee gets commits. It's exciting, but that's just the beginning. They still have to court these guys pretty much 24/7, even through the season. So it's made recruiting so tough to follow and keep up with, and the guys in that business do a good job. But man, they go out on a limb sometimes making predictions, and everybody kind of throw shade at them when they're wrong, and it's not their fault. Like, based on the information they had at the time, they're probably 100% right. They're giving you exactly what they know, and a kid can change his mind based on the number of zeros that gets put on a check in front of him.
Yep. And even, like you said, even when they're locked in, the season ends and you just kind of are waiting for, can they actually keep him around? How the postseason negotiations go?
Yeah.
And it's tough because it just ultimately, for the fans that love these schools and don't necessarily love each individual player, it creates like you have a hard time finding guys to root for because guys will just hop around all over the place. And so, they might end their career at Tennessee, but maybe they transferred there and only played for one season. And that there's so much of that now where you're like, can I even be a big fan of this guy? Because Lord knows he might hop out here. Like good luck selling a jersey. There are a ton of Tennessee fans right now with Nico Iamaleava jerseys just being like, well, there goes my $100 just down the toilet that I spent on this kid's stupid jersey. So, yeah, it is what it is with recruiting, unfortunately. But to move onward and upward, Tennessee has the team that they have at the moment. They've gotten some transfers in. We've had talks at length on this show that I think we were both a little underwhelmed with the movement in the transfer portal for Tennessee this offseason. Obviously, you had the nonsense of Nico transferring out, a few other guys transferring out that were sort of unexpected. But you have the team that you got now. And what I want to talk about here was some of the notable just preseason predictions at the moment, three in particular. One that I think was surprising to a lot of people was ESPN's FPI, which is a digitally generated rating based on the roster that you have. Who knows what all goes into it. But it's data driven. It's not necessarily a person making these ranking decisions. And Tennessee was ranked 10th overall, ahead of LSU, ahead of Ole Miss, ahead of Auburn, South Carolina, Oklahoma, Florida, ahead of all of those teams at number 10, only behind in the SEC, only behind Texas, Alabama. Yeah, just Texas and Alabama. And that's it. So you're third in the SEC in FPI's mind. Texas, Georgia, and Alabama. Like I forget that Georgia's in the SEC. But still kind of impressive. But then you also saw Andy Staples ranking at on 3. He has Tennessee at number 21. That's maybe more where my own head is at the moment. And then you have the betting services that come in with Tennessee at like 8.5 wins. So 8 wins, you're probably like at that number 21 spot. 9 wins, you're probably 15, maybe getting up there close to the playoff range. 10 wins is your playoff likely, kind of how it was this past year. And at this exact moment, Zach, with all the movement that we've seen happen, the transfer haul that Heupel has gotten, how are you feeling about these preseason rankings?
Yeah, I feel like Tennessee should be in that probably 15 to 20 range. I think if you're a Tennessee fan, you want them to be maybe even outside the top 20. They play better when they start the season out that way. When they start out these big expectations, I just don't really think that it works out well for them. We've seen them, in 22 when they went to number 1 in the playoff rankings. The next week was the loss to Georgia in a game that was winnable. Some things went your way early in that game where you could have won that game, and it just didn't work out. I think the ceiling of this team, I mean, who knows what the ceiling is because we don't know what the quarterback play is going to be. But based on last season, look, Nico, even when he showed promise, obviously he's a talented kid, but he didn't play perfect. He needs some help around him, but he could have helped himself out a lot too by hitting on some of those deep shots, right? By making quicker decisions, by being more comfortable in the pocket. There's lots of things he could have done better. Quarterback play wasn't elite that you got last season, and you got to the playoff. You lose a couple of guys. You lose a James Pierce, who was an impact player on the defensive side of the ball. We'll see what happens with Jermod McCoy whenever he's able to come back. It sounds like his rehab's going really well, so that's reason for optimism there. You really hope that guy's back as soon as possible. But you lose James Pierce, you lose Dylan Sampson. Those are the two big ones. And Cooper Mays, of course, at center. If you can, effectively replace Cooper Mays at center, which the longer this goes, the more it kind of feels like Sam Pendleton, the Notre Dame transfer, might end up being the guy there because of his experience. It just doesn't seem like William Satterwhite's taking hold of that job. If you can get the running backs to somewhat replace the production of Sampson, it doesn't have to be one guy doing what Sampson did. In fact, that worked against you last year because he was unable to help you at all in the playoff game against Ohio State. Yeah. And if you can have somebody like Joshua Josephs and some of these younger, edge rushers step up and be impact players along the defensive line, I mean, you're basically returning a team that is playoff caliber. It just depends on the quarterback play, and you don't need outstanding SEC Offensive Player of the Year quarterback play to get the job done. You just need the level that you got last season. If you get better than that, if you hit more of these deep shots, maybe Joey Aguilar, is Hendon Hooker light or something, and who knows where this team can go. But I feel like they're in that range where it's like, yeah, they could be a 8-4 team that wins a bowl game and finishes the season 9-4, kind of like that 23 team with Joe Milton under center, or maybe they surprise us and they reel off 10 wins in the regular season, they get back in the playoff. I think that's why that 8.5 win mark feels pretty fair because you've got 3 huge games on your schedule at Alabama, at Florida, at home against Georgia. You have to win one of those games at minimum to have a shot at the playoff. If you lose all three, that's 9-3, and you're counting on running the table on every other game on your schedule, which that's easier said than done. Tennessee will probably be favored in all those other games, I would think, because you get Oklahoma at home, you get Arkansas at home, you're playing like Kentucky on the road. That's a game you should win on the road. So it's doable, but I mean that feels like about the right spot, 8.5, don't you think?
I agree. Yep, it just feels like until we see Aguilar, see what we're dealing with there. You watch his clips, and I don't see the potential for him to absolutely blow the doors off. Maybe he's just a gamer. Maybe he's just turned the lights on and this guy performs.
Which is what Hooker was.
Yeah. You never told him. I mean, Hooker, yeah, certainly when Hooker transferred in, he didn't have any of that tape that he ultimately gave at Tennessee. So judging from what we know, he doesn't have that, he's going to come in here and be, Johnny Manziel, but I think he could be more than serviceable. And I expect the offense to be, in terms of production and specifically scoring, I would expect the offense to be right there where it was last year, ideally better. With scoring,
room for improvement.
I mean, yeah, you better get better at scoring because that was the whole deal last year. I mean, three games where you didn't score in a first half or whatever it was, and which is ridiculous. I mean, that can't happen again, especially with a coach that's supposedly offensive genius and all this stuff. That just can't happen. But I expect the offense, even with Aguilar, to run fairly well. It's the defense that I look and go, can they keep that level that they had last year? I mean, you are just talking. If you paired the Hooker offense with that defense from last year, that's a national championship team. They would have been right there in the mix. And that's how good that defense was. And it carried you. I mean, there were games where it just straight up carried you. The way they kept in those first halves where you didn't score at all, you just went, thank goodness our defense is nasty, because that would have been a disaster. It's probably the reason that you beat Alabama. It's probably the reason that you won a number of those games. And can they keep that up? I don't like. I will say, 1,000-foot view, the schedule for Tennessee is not bad at all. You get to play Arkansas, you get to play Mississippi State. I mean, that's, relatively speaking, bottom half of the league, especially Mississippi State, should be, a cellar dweller this season. So,
and Oklahoma, who knows what? I mean, they're getting hyped because the quarterback they got. But I mean, Venables is very much on the hot
good
seat. I don't care what anyone says. If that guy goes 6-6 this year, 7-5, I don't think he's back.
No, I think they're better this year, but you play them at home. You should win that game. The Georgia game, I'll believe it when I see it. I'll put it that way as far as the Georgia game goes.
It might be as gettable as Georgia's going to be ever since that 2016 game. This might be the most gettable game for Tennessee if Tennessee's playing well.
Yes, you have to be thinking this is the one where we finally get back against Kirby.
And the weird thing there, too, real quick, is that game's super early in the year. It's in September. I don't know if that's good or bad yet, because I don't think Georgia's going to be hitting on all cylinders by that point. I think they're breaking in a new quarterback. There's some worries about the offensive line. Because Georgia, just like everyone else, is kind of having some depth issues because it's just so hard to build depth now. But then the same can be said for Tennessee, breaking in a new offensive line, new quarterback. So who knows where Tennessee's going to be at that point in the season, too.
Yeah, 100%. But it's really the defense that I wonder about, because I think Aguilar or whoever is playing quarterback, we think it's going to be Joey Aguilar.
Are you rooting for Aguilar? You think?
Oh,
are you rooting? You think?
It just would be such a cool story, especially if he comes in and he plays really well. Like the story there is unbelievable. So I would love to see that happen. No offense to Jake Merklinger or anything. And obviously, if Jake Merklinger ends up being the dude who can win you more football games, play that guy. I don't care. At the end of the day, I want football games that Tennessee wins over a great story. But
history suggests that the guy that Heupel chooses first won't be the guy.
That's true. So maybe I should be rooting for Jake Merklinger to take the starting job. No, but I think the offense, you're going to be up there. To your point, yeah, you don't have Dylan Sampson, but also he was completely worn ragged last season, and just you almost have to have a running back by committee, which it's going to be this season, in the way that Heupel does this, where it's so run heavy. So, can the defense be elite again? I'm very interested to see. Syracuse is probably not going to be an amazing test of that. They got that quarterback from Notre Dame, and
who Tennessee passed on basically.
Yeah. So we'll see what happens in those first few games. Obviously, Georgia being the big test there. But I think 8 to 9 is correct. If you can win 9, that's a good season. If you can win 10, Heupel's a miracle worker. If you
win
beyond
10,
that,
the playoff.
Yes. But if you win 10, that means that you either won at the Swamp, you won in Tuscaloosa, or you beat Georgia. That's what that means.
Which of those three do you want the most? I think my answer would be Georgia at home, because I think, man, I don't know. But you got to
winning in the Swamp would be nice.
Yes. Winning at the Swamp would be number 2, and then 3 would be Tuscaloosa.
Yeah.
Georgia and Florida, that's very close to me. I don't want to see them lose at home to Georgia again. But at the same time, winning in the Swamp, first time in over 20 years, and you would prove, I mean, that game will, I don't know, I'm sure the game time's already been released for that, maybe. I'm not sure if it has or hasn't. It's been weird the way they've been revealing game times, but probably going to be a night game, I would assume, just because that's Tennessee's luck, and with the new ESPN deal with SEC, you would lift a huge, that's something that Heupel hasn't done yet. Besides maybe that game against Oklahoma, which wasn't a very good Oklahoma team, you haven't went and won a huge game on the road. Winning in the Swamp would be a massive accomplishment. Nah, maybe I'd rather have that. Maybe I'd change my answer. I'd rather have the Florida one.
It genuinely is tough. I'm not sure. I mean, I think I'd go Georgia just because they have been such a powerhouse for so long, and it would be kind of conquering that again. But I'll take any one and hopefully 2 of
why not 2?
Yeah, winning in the Swamp is just freaking do it. Just do it already. Oh my gosh. But yeah, I think that's where I'm landing at the moment. Like I said, in the coming weeks, we're gonna deep dive into absolutely everything. We don't have that much time today, unfortunately. As I mentioned, our schedules. But anything else? We'll make a little mention of Tony Vitello here at the end of the show. But anything else with football before we bounce about here, Zach?
No, I mean it's going to be another month before we really start to know kind of the vibe of this team as they get into media days and fall camp opens. We'll start to get a feel for this team, which can be tough. Heupel can be coy, so I don't know what he's going to give us, especially media days. I'm imagining there will be zero clues about the quarterback situation, probably until the night before Syracuse.
Well, or I feel like it could be a big thing, like he announces Merklinger's coming to media days, or Aguilar. I mean,
I don't think that's going to happen.
I don't think you tip his hand like that, though. Yeah.
I think that's going to be Bryson Eason, Miles Kitselman, and Arian Carter. That's my prediction for the 3 that he takes.
Yes. I like that. I think he'll, as he always does, just the most straightforward guys that he knows are going to give the right answers. That's Heupel's way. We shall see. But to end things off, just got a shout out to Tony V, just cleaning up on the transfer portal trail out there. Yesterday, got a commitment from Garrett Wright, who was the defensive player of the year in the MAC. He batted .406 for Bowling Green, which that's the MAC, but also it batted .406, which is pretty great. So you pair him with the best offensive player in JUCO baseball last year that you got out of Walter State, and a number of other, this Brady Fredericks from ETSU, who's a local kid, came from Bearden. Love that. Huge stuff on the recruiting trail. And there's more. Maybe I think that kid from Virginia is still out there, Henry Ford, who's from Chattanooga, I think. And hopefully you're right there with him. And the only snafu, I guess, was just earlier today. Dylan Loy goes into the transfer portal. I don't know if does that strike you as odd, Zach?
I mean, Not really. Guys looking for opportunities because they want to get a chance to get to the next level, and sometimes they want a situation where maybe somebody out there's promised him that he's going to be in a rotation. He's going to be a Saturday starter or Sunday starter somewhere. Yeah, who knows where that? I'm sure those conversations have been had. Obviously, we know you don't just enter the portal these days without having a pretty good idea of where you're going. At least if you're coming from an SEC program. But I don't. Not odd. It's unfortunate because he's pitching. You can never have enough pitching, and he's a guy with SEC experience, so it'd be nice to have. But not totally shocked by that either.
I'm not either. It was always odd how little Tony used him. He'd bring him in that goofy. I guess not that goofy because a lot of the time it works, but Tony has a real penchant for putting him on certain batters, like, oh, bring him in for this one left-handed guy. Here comes Loy for one guy, and then they take him out.
It's so weird because they took that in MLB where you can't do that anymore. It used to slow the game down so much. Just pitching changes, of course, just take forever. Every time you watch a college game, it's always a bit jarring to me, the amount of pitching changes that there are, even though it wasn't that long ago you could do that in Major League Baseball. That would be nice to put that rule in college too. I think it would totally change the way these guys are used and strategy from the coaches.
Yep. I mean, the tough truth is I hate it. He's local guys from Pigeon Forge. I think truth is they're going to portal right into his spot. They'll find somebody to fill that spot. I mean, Tony's best recruiter in the sport right now. So it's either him or Jay Johnson at LSU.
And Jay's busy right now, so.
Yep, exactly. You have an advantage over LSU at the moment. Tony has even talked about that. He went on Basilio last week. You and I both listened to it, Zach, and he talked multiple times in that interview about how he kind of hated that he couldn't recruit while he was in Omaha.
It's the old Nick Saban thing, right?
It really is, man. It really is. I was so busy winning a national championship, I couldn't recruit. Yeah.
That's true, though, especially in college baseball, because the window opens at the beginning of June into May, so you really are 3-4 weeks behind if you go all the way.
Yeah, it is tough, and so maybe ideally, it would just be great if LSU and Arkansas both go as deep as possible without winning. That's
especially Arkansas.
Especially Arkansas. Yeah. Who? I mean, I don't know how they're doing against Murray State at the moment. Let's see. This is real. Oh no, it starts at 2. I thought it started at 1. Oh. So. Yeah, there you go. Well, Charlie Burris, Zach Ragan, thanks so much for listening. Sorry it's a short one this week, but we just want to drop in, have at least something for you. And yeah, I think that's it. You're going to be gone next week, right, Zach?
Week after next.
I'll be week after next.
Yeah.
All right. So hopefully regular show next week, and then we'll figure it out after that. So again, Charlie Burris, Zach Ragan, thanks for listening, and we will talk to you all next week.
See you guys later.